There is a famous quote that's widely attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. You have probably heard it. It goes like this: I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Now, what's interesting is that this quote is mostly spread by Christians themselves, especially in India. Why? Because it gives them a kind of moral encouragement. It makes them feel that if only they lived like Jesus, they could win more people in India over to Christianity. That somehow, Indians are rejecting Christianity not because of Christ, but because of Christians. So they hold on to this quote almost as a motivational line. But here is the first important point. Gandhi never said these exact words. There is no official record of this precise quote in any of his writings or speeches. However, he said several things about Jesus and Christians that reflect this sentiment. Let me mention some of them. Gandhi regarded Jesus as a good moral teacher. He once said, if only Christians lived like Christ, all of India would be Christian today. And in the book The Christ of the Indian Road, written by the Methodist Christian missionary Stanley, Gandhi told Jones something along these lines. I cannot become a Christian because I have not seen Christians who truly follow Christ. These are well documented. So even though Gandhi did not utter the exact same words in that famous quote, its meaning reflects what Gandhi believed about Christ and Christians. And it's not just Gandhi. Many non-Christians around the world echo the same idea. They respect Jesus, but they are not so fond of Christians. So, what non-Christians admire in Jesus? Many non-Christians genuinely admire Jesus not as a divine being, but as a moral teacher. They appreciate his teachings. Love your enemies. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Turn the other cheek. Blessed are the peacemakers. To them, Jesus represents compassion, humility, and resistance to injustice. They see a man who cared for the poor, challenged the powerful, and called for inner change. So when they say we like Christ, this is what they mean. They admire the ethical vision he seemed to offer. Then why do non-Christians are not so happy with Christians? The problem arises when they look at many Christians and see the opposite of what Jesus taught. They see in Christians judgment instead of compassion, condemnation instead of understanding, power-hungry preachers instead of humble servants, threats of hell instead of acts of love, political alliances that promote hate, division, and discrimination. To those outside Christianity, this contradiction is glaring. They ask, if Jesus taught humility, why do so many Christians act superior? If Jesus called for love, why do they curse, reject, and attack those who don't believe like them? It's not that non-Christians expect perfection, but when the people who claim to follow Jesus behave in ways that completely contradict his teachings, it sends a powerful message. You are not following your own Christ. Let me share a personal experience. When I left Christianity, I made it clear that I was leaving because of the contradictions, errors, and moral problems I found in the Bible. I announced my departure from Christianity in my previous Tamil Bible Ministry channel, YouTube channel, and I explained the reasons. And in response to that video, some Christians cursed me. Literally cursed me. Please see some of their comments under that video. This person says that I will die of cancer. This one says I will have a heart attack. And this person judges me and tells me that I will go to hell. These are people who claim to follow Jesus, the same Jesus who said, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. So clearly, these Christians are not following Jesus. In fact, ironically, Gandhi followed Jesus' teachings more than many Christians do today. So, why Christians don't follow Christ? Here is the real revelation, and it may surprise you. Christians who believe Jesus is God often don't follow his moral teachings, precisely because they believe he is God. That's the reason. Christians do not follow Jesus' good moral teachings because they believe Jesus is God. That's the key. Many non-Christians, including Gandhi, admired Jesus because they saw him as a man, a moral teacher, a wise human being who preached love, humility, and nonviolence. But Christians don't see Jesus as just a man. They see him as God, and that changes everything. Why? Because if he is God, then according to the Bible, he is not someone who wants you to love your enemies. If Jesus is God, then he is also the same God of the Old Testament, the one who commanded his followers to invade enemy nations and kill everyone, including women and innocent children. Not love them, kill them, not forgive them, destroy them. This is what God commanded in the Bible. So here is the uncomfortable truth. Jesus as a man says, love your enemies. But Jesus as God says, destroy your enemies. That's the contradiction. Only as a man does Jesus teach compassion. But as God, according to the Bible, he becomes the very opposite of that message. He becomes a God of vengeance, punishment, and holy war. And this is why so many Christians ignore his moral teachings. They don't follow the man Jesus. They follow the God Jesus. Jesus as man versus Jesus as God. If you view Jesus as a human teacher, you can focus on his message of love, peace, and humility. Gandhi could admire and even try to live by those values. But once you view Jesus as God, you must accept everything attributed to God in both the Old and the New Testaments. That includes mass killings, ethnic cleansing, eternal punishment, divine wrath. In the Old Testament, God commands, destroy them all, show no mercy. And even in the New Testament, Jesus as God says, whoever does not believe in me will be sent to hell. He doesn't say love everyone regardless of their belief. He says, believe in me or face eternal punishment. That's not universal love or moral guidance. That's religious authoritarianism and exclusion. So when Christians say Jesus is God, they tie him to the darker parts of the Bible, and the result is confusion, hypocrisy, and selective morality. That's not the same Jesus Gandhi admired. Jesus as a man may have been a wise moral teacher, but Jesus as God becomes a figure of judgment, vengeance, and violence, echoing the traits of the biblical deity. So the conclusion is this: Jesus cannot be God if he was truly a good man. Most likely, Jesus was just a man, perhaps a moral reformer who lived in the 1st century Judea. But after his death, some of his followers turned him into a god. And that is why his human character doesn't match the violent and vengeful nature of the biblical God.